to AIM Ocala Live, WOCA The Source, 96.3 FM, 1370 AM. As it is time for news bits of news that you can chew. But before we get to that, we want to just mention with our last segment there for Galen with Life South Community Blood Centers, as we banged out 25 minutes there talking about what we do not have this week, which is the Masters Golf Tournament. As I watched the 1986 Jack Nicklaus Classic yesterday, which was some good stuff to talk about. But with that segment, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Palm Garden Health and Rehabilitation Center. We'd like to thank Palm Garden Health and Rehabilitation Center, located at 2700 Southwest 34th Street, where they offer skilled nursing, physical, occupational, and speech therapy. Again, if you have any questions, as we have been throwing it up with our advertisements here and what they do, if you have any questions on how they're handling COVID-19, they say give them a call, 352-854-6262. That's 854-6262. And, of course, Penn Flooring, family-owned and operated, serving Marion County for over 30-plus years. Every bit of their success is to their unrivaled customer service. Full-service flooring company dedicated to finding the best solution for your flooring needs, with experience in both commercial and residential fields. Penn Flooring at 1201 Southwest 17th Street. In Ocala, 351-3420. That's 351-3420. So Penn Flooring and Palm Garden Health and Rehabilitation Center. As we said, as we're moving to the news bits of news that you can chew here. As we're rolling with it, we've got a few items to touch upon it. In lieu of coronavirus, there's been a lot of really, I'm going to say interesting, I'm going to say weird, but things that come about from it that you wouldn't expect. And this one here hits home a little bit. Florida dairy farmers forced to dump excess milk. Okay, so this one here, it says takers dumped milk in the field near Okeechobee, Florida, Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. As farmer Travis Larson of Larson Dairy Incorporated said the COVID-19 pandemic has really disrupted his industry. It says we lost our market of milk. It says Florida dairy farmers have dumped enough milk into grassy fields and down industrial drains in the past week to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Okay, Florida dairy farmers collectively have spewed enough milk into grassy fields and down industrial drains in the past week to overflow an Olympic-sized swimming pool, saying that about 70 farmers began dumping excess milk April 1st. 135 tankers totaling over 800,000 gallons, according to Joe Wright of the V&W Farms in Avon Park. And that's all because schools are closed, theme parks are shuttered, restaurant dining rooms are empty. The COVID-19 pandemic has all but obliterated institutional milk sales, said Wright, who has been the president of the Southeast Milk Incorporated Company of a Bellevue-based corporate serving 6 southern states for the past 23 years. Quote, it's heartbreaking. We're getting calls from food banks. There is a need for milk. The fact that grocery stores are still limiting the purchases when we're pouring it down the drain, there's a disconnect here. That's what I was thinking. That's why I read this. Now, with news bits, as we're to read you the news and give you something to stir conversation here, I thought this one was fascinating nonetheless, and I wouldn't mind spending just a little bit here on it. And that was where my thought was, is where's the disconnect? Because in lieu of limiting the purchasing of what you can get for milk in the stores, but then knowing that we're dumping some of it. Here it says panic buying. It says panic buying of grocers led to the shortage of milk across the state in March. As the new coronavirus seeped into nearly every Florida county, some stores began limiting the purchase per customer per household. So Tuesday, there was a 2-gallon purchase limit on the milk at the Publix at Prima Vista Crossing in Port St. Lucie. Similar restrictions that applied to a Wawa on West Grandy Boulevard in Tampa and the Sam's Club on Youngerman Circle in Jacksonville and the Winn-Dixie and Gulf Breeze Parkway near Pensacola. Quote, there's a huge amount of milk still today going on the ground in the state of Florida, said Brittany Nickerson Thurlow, a fifth-generation dairy farmer in Zolfo Springs. There's just nowhere to send it. There's pictures too here in lieu of, and mind you, coming this article from the Ocala Star-Banner, which is a great article, to worth bringing this up. And the pictures are literally 5 tankers, truck tankers, just pouring milk into a field. There is a disconnect here. Wow. I didn't understand that this was affecting an industry such as this in this way, as now it's, I don't know. I don't know what to think of this. It is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking when we're getting calls from food banks that there's a need for milk. The fact that grocery stores are still limiting the purchases when they're pouring it down the drain. There's a disconnect here. That's a huge disconnect. Anyway, as the article just finished up there, saying that there's a huge amount of milk still today going on the ground in the state of Florida, that there's a disconnect in the idea of where they can send it. So the supply and demand is askew, and in lieu of that, with having the supply and how milk does end up going bad, and I guess in the way of loss prevention, about 70 farmers began dumping excess milk April 1st, which is, they said, 135 tankers totaling over 800,000 gallons. And that was according to Joe Wright of the VNW Farms in Avon Park. And this is all because schools are closed, theme parks are shuttered, restaurant dining rooms are empty, and the COVID-19 pandemic has all but obliterated the institutional milk sales. That is incredible. That is hard to hit the dairy farmers. And then what is that going to result when we get through this with the idea of the price per gallon of milk thereafter for them to recoup? It's crazy. What an interesting thing that you wouldn't think would be affected so much. As yesterday we were talking about the idea of the toilet paper. The amount of buying of the toilet paper that the factories can't keep up, and its distribution that has the disconnect there to get more of these shipments of toilet paper to the consumer. Here we're talking about something like milk, which is probably way more important in a sense of nutritional value, food consumption. Calcium, vitamin D, calories. Yet they're pouring it out. Incredible stuff. This is where it's gone now. In lieu of all this stuff. So there you go. Continuing on with news bits here. This is interesting, as it's a little bit more deemed political. I don't know if I wanted to get into that, but it's the election supervisors want DeSantis to make certain changes. It says Florida election supervisors have asked Governor Ron DeSantis for emergency measures that they say will help them cope with an anticipated significant statewide shortage of poll workers later this year because of the novel coronavirus. The locals officials want the governor to issue an executive order allowing supervisors to designate additional or alternative early voting sites, give counties the option of adding an extra week to the 2-week early voting period, and to allow people to cast ballots at early voting sites through Election Day. It says supervisors, quote, encountered significant challenges, end quote, during the March presidential primary elections, such as polling places becoming unavailable, difficulty in acquiring hand sanitizer and other supplies, and, quote, substantial numbers of poll workers deciding not to work. Levy County Supervisor Elections Tammy Jones wrote to DeSantis on Tuesday. It says, while we anticipate that some level of in-person voting will continue, we believe that based on our March 17, 2020 election, alternatives or adding voting methods must be available to counties said Jones, president of the Organization of Florida Supervisors Elections. The supervisors also want DeSantis to suspend a state law requiring at least one polling place in each precinct. Quote, this will allow the supervisor the option to relocate or reconsider polling places with early voting sites. It says, while a number of states canceled recent primary elections, DeSantis insisted that Florida's elections take place, quote, saying, we're definitely voting, DeSantis told reporters days before the March 17th elections. They voted during the Civil War. We are going to vote. It says, although some states now are considering a mandate that all voters cast ballots by mail, Florida is, quote, not in position at this time to conduct all mail-in ballot election this year, said Jones, who advised DeSantis in Tuesday's letter. It says the possibility of mail-in ballots has sparked a partisan divide. President Donald Trump, in a Twitter post Wednesday morning, told Republicans to, quote, fight very hard against statewide mail-in voting. Floridians are allowed, quote, to vote by mail for any reason at all. It says here, in addition to other requests, the county officials are also seeking additional days to send vote-by-mail ballots and are asking to be able to begin canvassing and tabulating vote-by-mail ballots earlier. While there may be an additional changes necessary for the August and November elections, which will come to our attention and need your assistance, authorizing the provisions at this time that will allow us to prepare more efficient and safe elections, Jones wrote. So in adjustments that are trying to be made in lieu of coronavirus for the expectations of voting. So there you go there. Moving on a little bit in lieu of all this, as we talked a little stimulus check stuff within the morning about when the majority of those should be seen and come through. As also, to the idea of being cautious about scammers right now, having an idea that anybody asking you for information on your bank account or anything like that is a scam. With that, on a lighter note, let's talk a little bit about this. It says Americans are craving comfort food during coronavirus. It says cereal, snacks, baked goods are flying off the shelves, but apparently milk isn't. It says let's just call this a judgment-free zone until further notice. It says Americans are indulging in comfort food as the coronavirus pandemic keeps them cooped up, eating sugary cereal, junk food, frozen pizza, and other maybe not so healthy items to help get them through the pandemic. The trend represents a stark reversal from the national gravitation toward more natural foods in recent years, which had benefited products viewed as healthier. But a sudden explosion of stress, boredom, and in some cases lack of alternatives has changed people's habits, or at least temporarily. Waistlines, beware. While stockpiling toilet paper, hand sanitizer wherever they can find it, Americans are snapping up familiar items like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Goldfish crackers, baked goods, and it says dairy products. However, we just mentioned about the milk in itself, milk in general, not one of those. It says people seem to be craving comfort food. President of dairy product maker Saputo, which reported surging sales in string cheese. Breakfast is back. Breakfast items in particular are enjoying a sudden resurgence. Quote, I think families are turning to things like cereal to instill a sense of what's familiar, what's normal, something they trust, said Ricardo Fernandez, president of the U.S. cereal business at General Mills, where sales of cereal like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Trix, and Lucky Charms are booming. It says people used to skip breakfast may come back to breakfast because their normal routine is so disrupted. As dairy sales, in lieu of which are closely tied to cereal, they say soared 60% within the week, ending March 22nd compared to the year earlier. To the idea that the increase marks a sudden reversal of products like fluid milk, which has been declining in popularity for years, they say. And then this is where it hits hard nonetheless. Suddenly, the kitchen table is occupied with parents and kids eating alongside each other. And, quote, it's kind of like yesteryear, if you will, said Mike Dyke, CEO of International Dairy Foods Association, whose members include dairy processors, farm coops, and retailers like Kroger and Safeway. Quote, they're all there with nothing to go to. So they're eating meals as families. They're having breakfast together. Fernandez said General Mills plants are operating at full capacity to help meet the demand from pantry stuffing consumers for the company's cereal. Quote, we're seeing a spike across the board and has taken an extra precaution to protect workers to ensure food safety. And there's certainly a rush of consumers stocking up at home. Kellogg, which sells the Frosted Flakes and Pop-Tarts, declined an interview request for the story, but the company has experienced an increase in sales across the entire lineup of products, according to spokesperson Chris Barr, who said in an email, reaching for snacks and treats, another sign of comfort food boom. Americans appear to be baking more and consuming more sweets than usual now at home. Ingredient seller McCormick reported a sharp uptick in sales of vanilla, a key ingredient in most cookies. Steve Presley, CEO of Nestle USA, said in an email comment that the company's baking brands, including Nestle Toll House and Carnation, are very performing strongly. And as consumers embrace familiar, comforting treats that they know and love. Now, overall sales of fresh and packaged bakery items in the week ended March 22nd with a jump of 37% compared to the year earlier, according to the IRI. In general, snacks are enjoying a feast, according to companies like the Conagra brand, which sells like Slim Jim jerky and Orville Redenbacher's popcorn. Quote, we see incredibly high velocities across multi-serve, single-serve snacks. And brand CEO Sean Connolly said on a conference call with investors on March 31st, it says sales of Campbell's Goldfish crackers increased 23% in the 4 weeks ended March 15th. It's funny because I just had a pack of Goldfish crackers last night after I ate my meal. Spam, which is made by Hormel, is among the products experiencing strong demand. As the canned food Spam, ham, Spam. CEO of Keurig Dr. Pepper, which sells Krispy Kreme donuts and Cinnabon branded sweets in stores, said on March 31st, call that there's a surge of bringing snacks home from the store. Behavior has just changed fundamentally, he said. The challenge is sellers of self-table comfort food like cereal and dry snacks like Kellogg's Cheez-It crackers will be the maintain momentum wherever the coronavirus eventually subsides. And it says here, however, there is potential for some sustained demand for consumers who continue to keep their pantries stocked with non-perishables to stay prepared for potential similar events in the future, as well as the demand for those who have now shifted back breakfast preferences to cereal. So there you go. We're just eating more snacks. We're eating all kinds of stuff like that all together, right? Who knows? Good morning. We got a caller. Good morning, WOCA. You're on the air.
Hi, Adam. How you doing?
Good, partner. Happy Thursday.
Yes, you too. See, it looks and sounds to me like in about a month or 2 or 3, there's going to be a lot of people going on diets.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be a midway resolution time of year coming after all of this seclusion and quarantine stuff. And you know what's funny is a lot of people I talk to do say that you get bored. What do? You eat. Now, and with that being said, it's almost to the idea that a lot of people are like, just give me what's easy. I'll just grab this. Or even if you do make a meal, it subsides. If you make a healthier meal, it's not going to keep you as filled up longer. So people are turning to the pantry for those good snack dry goods. And I'll admit it.
Right.
I had a 3-course continental dinner last night that was delicious. And for some reason after that, I still had a package of Goldfish crackers.
Well, it sounds to me like this is a great time for junk food.
Yeah, I think so. Like they said, the comfort food, if you will. The comfort food.
Well, there's so many things that go with a can of beer, so it's not all that bad, I guess.
Exactly. Between the canned nuts, between the bagged almonds, between the goldfish crackers, between the pretzels, between the barbecue potato chips, all goes great with a nice cool beer.
Okay. Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
You got it, buddy. WOCA at the top of the hour. We'll be back after this.
Fox News, I'm Lillian Wu. A large relief package for small businesses in the works today.